It's kind of awkward. That's awesome. I haven't been able to sit down all day, so this is actually...
It's all I've been doing is sitting down.
This is actually awesome. Right? So, let's start. Is it your first time in the island?
Yes, it is, unfortunately. I've been to many of the Caribbean islands, but this is my first time in Puerto Rico, correct?
We're happy to have you here, believe me.
Thank you, too. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, you like it so far?
I grew up in Queens, New York with many of my friends were from Spanish origin, and I should have been down here many times with them, but I was always working, never had a chance.
What's your favorite part of being here so far?
This whole event is the favorite. You mean in Puerto Rico or at the convention?
Yeah, both, Puerto Rico and convention.
Well, being in Puerto Rico is the convention, but I got a chance to go to a couple of restaurants and see the San Juan, and I knew it was beautiful, but I haven't had a chance to enjoy the ocean yet.
Yeah.
That's okay, I'm here for business, and meet everybody is just so wonderful. I knew all my friends back in New York are wonderful people, but to see all you guys like this is a real pleasure. I apologize for not speaking Spanish to you, my apologies. I could speak French, I could even speak English occasionally, but the best thing is meeting all of these wonderful people.
Nice. Does anyone have any questions? Not yet? Don't be shy. You can stand up and start asking questions.
One question and I'll go for it.
Otherwise, I keep talking here with him for an hour. I really don't mind. I have so many questions myself, but...
I know this lady.
Oh yeah, she's fun.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes. This is not going to be the typical question. We're going to start with the band.
Nothing about my wife, please.
No, nothing personal, but can you tell us some stories about you playing Cards Against Humanity?
When I first heard about the game, I was only introduced to the foulest version of that game. And it was always involved with alcohol, so not only can I not remember half of the cards, but they're too foul to tell you about it. It's the most fun game I've ever had, and I've been so ashamed of having played it. Because there's always wives involved, and while you don't say anything foul, you get embarrassed because of some of the cards. One of the best games around, Cards Against Humanity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I've never played that game.
How do you describe that game? It's perfect to play while you're drinking. It's hard to describe, but it's a bunch of cards with answers that make no sense until you get a question and you try to apply the answers to it, no matter how foul they are. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like fun, especially if you're drinking.
Yes.
I have to agree with you.
Yes, sir.
Hi. Since you got right to DC Comics, you've drawn Superman written by Jeff Johns, and you're gonna do Batman with Scott Snyder. Which other superhero would you like to draw, aside from the two of them?
With DC?
Yeah.
Which other superhero would I like to draw? I honestly have no idea what I would do other than Superman and Batman. I know what might happen, what DC might offer me when I get through with All-Star Batman, but I'm not sure. But if I had to choose, I don't know. I guess Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman. And that's such a cop-out. It's the easiest, the three most iconic characters in creation. But she's a wonderful character. It's a wonderful character. I would like to try it.
Yeah, it would be nice to see your interpretation of that character.
Sure, I would fix her shorts. Because I don't know a woman that can stand to wear those panties on a regular basis.
Yeah.
That's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, it must be. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would love to see your version of Nightwing.
Okay. I think that might happen sometime along.
That would be
awesome. Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
If you have the ability to do like the most craziest idea at Marvel or DC, what would that idea be?
Do I have to give the secret out? I'll
Maybe
give
if you
you
want
an
to.
idea that I had. The reason I first did Superman was because I had an idea for a story that originally applied to Silver Surfer and or Doctor Strange. So when I came over to DC and I spoke to Dan DiDio, I told him I had an idea for a story. and they liked it, and they were going to allow me to do it until Jeff Johns offered to work on the continuity title with me. But the idea is that Superman disappears from this galaxy and goes to take a break. He's exhausted. This was 2 years ago, and I came up with the idea. And is approached by a deity that wants to start a new race with him. And he refuses, so the deity puts him through a lot of hell to test him, and he still refuses, but the deity goes ahead, and it's a female, typical female, takes advantage of Superman, and takes advantage of his time, the time with him, and then starts the race all by herself. And I'm working on that right now.
Sounds awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. If anybody copies it, I've already got it copyrighted. I can't believe I just opened my mouth about that.
Hi. Now you're working with Scott Snyder on the collaboration for All-Star Batman, and what can we expect about it? What can we expect?
The six-part series has got to do with Batman dragging Two-Face to justice, but not just justice. It's a spot where Two-Face will be cured. That's the basis of the story. The problem is that Two-Face has his fingers and his hands tied into so many powerful people that there's a lot of obstructions along the way. So the six-issue story is all about the difficulty that Batman goes through getting him from point A to point B. And it's outside of Gotham City. And it's an insane storyline. And I don't have to draw any tall buildings, just a lot of country roads, but there's a lot of people and a lot of trucks, chainsaws, farm animals, everything you can imagine outside of the city. And it's one of the more interesting stories I've ever worked on. Scott Snyder is amazing.
Yes.
He really is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey there, how you doing?
All right, doing well, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm tired. I'm tired. So I wanted to ask you, so being a comic book artist isn't really what a lot of people call a very normal job. It's pretty out of the norm. But I wanted to know, how did your family first react when you wanted to get into this type of job?
That's a great question. My father did not want me to be a cartoonist at all. As a matter of fact, he didn't mind me getting into the art field, but at the time, he was working long, insane hours and not making very much money, and he felt that it's too difficult a job to make a living for a family. And I was 16 or 17, and how many kids that age listen to their father? And even though the father was right at the time. So I didn't have really anything else I want. I got my degree in advertising illustration. And that's what I was planning on going if things didn't work out with comics. But things kind of developed, and I got a little bit better, and they gave me a little bit more work. And I had to go through a lot of, pardon me for saying this, a lot of crap from the people that didn't like me because of my last name. And made my father get angrier, not at them, but over the fact that I chose the field. So he says, you can't use that as an excuse. Either you go all in, or you get out. And he said, make up your mind, stand up and be a man. He says, then don't touch anybody. Put your hands in your pockets and take all the crap they're gonna throw at you. Right. Because if I had hit anybody that deserved it in 1977, I'd still be in jail right now.
Right. And now you're here, so.
Now I'm here. So it worked out very well, but my father thought it was a bad idea at the time. And I just couldn't sing or dance. I couldn't play football, so I decided I could play baseball. I should have played baseball.
Maybe. So
But I'd be out of a job right now anyway.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello?
Hi, how are you?
Hi. First of all, thank you for coming to Puerto Rico, to Comic-Con.
Thank you for having me. It's your fault. You got me here. Thank you very much for having me.
So many questions to ask, but we'll try to keep it brief so everybody gets a chance. Which one of your runs, either mostly Marvel, but now you're starting with DC, which one of the runs you felt it was underrated? Like your run, I loved your run in Thor. Your various runs in Spider-Man were, no pun intended, amazing, especially like in the early 2000s with J. Michael Straczynski.
Straczynski, yeah.
You actually humanized Spider-Man even more than he was already is.
Thank you.
And with the city and with job as a science teacher, balancing Spider-Man. Which run do you feel was either underrated in your eyes?
That's another good question. Underrated that I'm more proud of, or underrated that I think is a shame it was underrated? I'll try to answer both of them. The Daredevil series before I worked on Man Without Fear, just with Ann Nocenti, I think it should have gotten a little bit more attention. But Thor was about as Thor and Black Panther. I thought the stories were great, and I think Klaus Janson and the colorist Dean White did an amazing job. But Dan Jurgens on Thor, and Reggie Hudlin on Black Panther, and then Ann Nocenti on Daredevil. Those three series, I was very proud of the three of them, and they didn't get, because there were so many other books that were doing so well at the time, they were kind of pushed underneath. That's all right.
I really do enjoy your artwork.
Thank you.
And a better inker is Klaus, your art. I can't imagine any other inker doing.
I agree with you, but here's an interesting turn of events. The graphic novel I just finished with Frank Miller and Brian Azzarello, Dark Knight. It's a prequel. It's called Dark Knight: Last Crusade. And it's a graphic novel, and it's going to be out in a month. Originally Frank Miller was going to ink it because he inked the Green Lantern mini issue that I did, 12 pages, and he enjoyed it, and he wanted to ink this graphic novel, but it was 57 pages, and it was a little bit more labor-intensive than he expected, so he says, "No, I can't do it." And they had nobody that could get it done on time, so they are printing from the pencils directly, and they're having them cut, and they've been colored. It's finished. And because of digital enhancements, darkening up some of the pencils, it looks as good as somebody had inked it. It looks as if I had inked it myself. But the coloring, Peter Steigerwald just did an amazing, fantastic job on it. And it's as good as anything I've done before. So I'm very happy. That'll be out in a month. So as far as the inking goes, it's great having Klaus repairing everything. And all my inkers always fix everything for me. It's nice.
No, it's amazing. Thank you.
But this time it's just all pencils, and I can't blame anybody now.
That's your fault.
It's all my fault. That's it. Thank you.
Hello. So as a seasoned professional in comics, what's something that you learned after years on the job that you wish someone had told you when you were starting out? Something you could pass on to this new generation of aspiring comic book artists?
That I wish somebody had told me. That's a great question. I don't know if I can answer it. Other than the more you work, the better you get, then I would have worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day when I was younger. I started doing that as more work came in. I should have worked harder when I was younger. Maybe I would have gotten better faster. But I'm still not as good as I want to be. I hope I can stay alive long enough to get to that point. But if I had known that I would have gotten to this point by working longer hours and more days, I would have worked 10 days a week instead of 7.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
How do you manage to always reach your deadline?
I don't always reach my deadlines, but I come close. I was talking about that. It's an old work adage from my father, is you sit down and get done what you're supposed to get done until you finish. And fortunately, I started when the money was so bad that you had to work long hours to make enough money. And then I did something at the advice of one of my editors, was go out and buy a car you can't afford and live in an apartment you can't afford, and you will make all your deadlines because you need to make the money. Or get married.
That is true.
So all three of those things happened over time. It just happened to coincide with getting married, the car and the house. But deadlines is just because I grew up in an age when you had to work, you got paid per page of artwork. So in order to make your living and pay for your rent, you had to get a certain amount of work done. That plus there's always somebody better than have to work to get better. So it's just hard work, and I'm always afraid that I'm going to be told, sorry, there's no more work for you. I can't stop that feeling. And I've been told that may not happen for a little while longer, but as long as I've been in the business, there's always a fear that it's going to end, that I can't get the work done, or somebody won't like my work. And trust me, as many as there are people here that are happy with what I do, there's 10 times the amount of people on the internet telling me I am terrible. And they're all related to me too. They're all friends and family. So the internet allows you to keep your feet on the ground and makes you work harder. But it's just because of the way I was brought up, and that's just the way it is.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello.
Love your outfit.
Thanks.
What was your experience while drawing the cover for Robin Son of Batman?
I had never done it before. It's a different costume and a different book. I had never opened the book and never read one of the titles, any issues of that title before. It was different, but I did 27 covers, and most of them I had never worked on any of those characters before. So the answer is, I had no idea what I was doing at the time. And that's a good way of looking at things. Nobody yelled at me, so I guess it worked out okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark. Mr. Romita, Mr. Melendez.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I basically have a question regarding the boom with superhero movies. We've seen it grow these years, and basically in 2016 there have been 4 movies. Do you think it's a fade? Because we're noticing that movies like Batman vs. Superman and even the Civil War, they haven't been grossing as much as they were expected to. Do you think it's a phase that's going on in Hollywood, or do you think they're going to change it?
Honestly, there's no way that you can avoid some genre disappearing if the stories are terrible. As long as there's good stories. Listen, there have been, how many James Bond movies have there been?
24.
24. Not all of them have been good. There was a whole decade of bad James Bond movies, maybe 20 years worth, and they came back because people want to see that kind of thing. I honestly, while you won't see more than a few superhero costume movies, there are still ideas from the creators in comics that will make great movies. And as long as there's a good story, and as technology allows a film to be made cost effectively, you can't go wrong. I don't care what they're saying about the Batman Superman movie. It made a fortune.
Yeah.
Everybody around the world wants to see it. Even if they only see it once. There's a lot of people in the world. If they see it 2 or 3 times, that's a lot of money. And I enjoyed the movie. It's a perfect popcorn movie. I enjoy superhero movies. I don't need to be preached to. I don't need politics. I don't need anything moral about it. I want to sit back with my son and my family, toss a bucket of popcorn in my mouth, and enjoy it visually. And that's what I've done with all the even the bad ones.
Yeah.
Even the bad ones have been good to me. So I honestly think as long as the stories are good, and that's debatable whether all of them have been good, but as long as they're good, there will be superhero movies. And Disney and Warner Brothers own all of DC and Marvel's characters. And they can do anything they want with them. Anything the technology will allow. I don't think you can go wrong with it. And even if some guy in a newspaper or a magazine or a journalist says, I'm sick of costumes, and then just, no, go watch a movie about priests up in Boston. Go ahead. I don't care. I don't want to cry in a movie unless it's Finding Nemo. Again, sorry. I watched that movie with my son 8 times before he got too old, and I cried every single time. So as long as there's a movie that will touch you for the right reason and make you laugh and get you excited, you can't go wrong. I'm sorry. And the critics be damned. I don't care what a critic says. I honestly don't.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Wait, did I answer the question? The answer is there'll be no end to superhero movies as long as they're good stories.
I'm sorry for giving
I should have said the shorter version of it written immediately.
Hello, how are you today?
How are you? I'm fine.
I'm fabulous. I have a question. Will you work for Fox? They run Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. Will you work for them if they offer you something?
Well, I think my acting career is over.
No, come on, you're still young.
I got cut out of the Kick-Ass movie. Because this is true. Before I answer your question, yes, well, yeah, I'd work for Fox, yes. Mark Miller's already come to talk about it. But I got a part in the Kick-Ass movie, the first Kick-Ass movie. Because I was the only guy from New York that was Italian that was on the set. So they said, we got to put you in the movie, and they put me behind, and then they edited out my face. Because they told me I wasn't authentic enough. I was the only mobster looking, well, I'm sorry, I look like a mobster, you know. I was the only authentic Italian guy on the set. Sorry, you don't look. So they edited out my face. And then they said, they're going to put my name in the movie so that you don't feel so bad. How patronizing can you get? They're going to put my name in the movie, and then they changed it from Johnny Romita to Tony Romita because Johnny Romita wasn't authentic enough. So I laughed. I thought it was hysterical. That's what they thought. But one of the producers really did think I was in the mafia. Because he's from a very wealthy family in England. And for some reason, they asked me every question about the mafia. You know, all Italians are in the mafia, you know? So they asked me all these questions, and I knew the answers. So the producer thought I was in the mafia. And he was afraid of me. I swear this is a true story. He was terrified of me. And the reason we got paid on time, which doesn't happen all the time, I swear to my mother's, that's the true story. The director, Matthew Vaughn, said, listen, I'm gonna take you aside, I have to tell you something. The producer is afraid of you, and he's also about 9 feet tall, but he's really skinny. And he's afraid of me because he thinks I'm in the mob. I said, well, come on, it's a joke. He says, no, don't tell him. Let him think this. Matthew Vaughn told me this. Now, all of these years later, this producer still thinks I'm connected. But they edited out my face because I didn't look authentic enough. So I said to him, you know, yeah, that was a really stupid thing to do. Don't go starting your car tomorrow morning. And he didn't go in his car the next day. I said, I was just kidding around. Oh yeah, sure you were kidding around. I had somebody check under the hood for wires. So my acting career ended right there. Because I threatened to blow up the producer on Kick-Ass.
Hey, but you got paid on time.
I got paid on time.
So.
Are you a Yankee? Are you from the Yankees? You gotta be a Yankee.
I'm a Yankee fan because I'm old enough to be around before the Mets. But I root for whichever team needs that might help most. No, I'm a Yankee fan from way back when, and then I enjoy the Mets too. So I'm a New York fan. That's the way my father brought me up. I even rooted for the Islanders at one point.
I really thank you. Welcome to Puerto Rico.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. All right. That was a long answer to, no, I'm not. Well, yes, I would work for Fox as long as they let me play a non-Italian. I don't want to scare anybody.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My favorite of your runs was when you were drawing Uncanny X-Men.
Oh, thank you.
Because there's nothing like the first time.
Good point. Of course, if you do the first time over about 50 times, then it gets better every time.
True. What were the pros and cons of working with Chris Claremont in X-Men?
Ooh, you're not related to him, are you?
No.
It was more so that I had just begun, and I was the inexperienced one, and Chris was the experienced one. Now, Chris and I are really good friends now, and over the period of time that we worked together, he was dominating. He would send me a script or a plot, he called it. It was about 100 pages thick, which would describe every single panel because he felt I was inexperienced, which was partially true. But he was dominating and not malicious in any way, but almost, he was not really paying much attention to me. He was the guy. And the X-Men were as big as you could get. They were selling 500,000 copies a month, something like that. But it was a great experience because it taught me how to keep my mouth shut. And I learned a lot from it. And I was able to navigate his ridiculously dense plots. And I was able to get through it. I did an adaptation of Dante's Inferno that had about 1 trillion characters in it. And then Chris and the inker complained that I put too many characters in it. That's the way they worked. I couldn't do anything right for them. But it worked out that I had good experience with it, and I managed to get past it. Now Chris is just as sweet as pie to me. It's amazing. He must be talking to the producer over in London. He's afraid to start his car every morning. That was a good experience, and I learned a lot from it. And we're good friends.
And my favorite storyline was the one where Rachel Summers goes to kill the Black Queen, and Wolverine goes out to get her, stop her from
That's a
killing
good
her.
story. I wish I had come up with that idea myself. Actually, I did. I'm the one that came up with that idea. Chris had nothing to do with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops. Hi, John. Quick question. With the movies being so popular right now, has their popularity, affected or influenced in the creator artist way of, drawing right now? Because people buy the comic book and they expect the characters to look some way. Has that influenced, not maybe because you have to draw, because they tell you have to draw it some way, has that affected or limited any way you're into, when you go to drawing, not just yourself, but in the whole area in general?
Only if specific orders come down that there is a plan to do something. But as far as I remember, Disney didn't affect anything at Marvel creatively. Now they're affecting things maybe financially or business end, but not creatively. And then the same with DC. It's always been hands-off because they trust the creative teams. And I honestly have never been told anything other than perhaps Superman's costume has to look a certain way because of the merchandising. But it was never creative. They allowed a lot of freedom, and Disney did the same thing. But there have been moments where an agenda has been discussed with the writer. While it hasn't affected adversely in any way, it was a means to an end for some part of a film, or some part of merchandising. So it's been very pleasant with both big companies. I hope it continues that way, but I can't. They own everything, so they can do whatever they want. And until they start telling me what to do, I'll work for them. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. I have a question about the Punisher Batman Deadly Nights crossover. How did they approach you to work on it?
I think they just wanted me off the X-Men. Because I never got back on the X-Men after that. They just said that I was doing the Punisher, and that the Punisher would lend itself towards Batman's type of storylines. And then somebody came up with a great script and a great plot, and they handed it to me. It was pretty much that. It was just easy. And I got a chance to do Batman for the first time. I wish I could do that story over now. I'm a better artist than I've done Batman before. So it would be interesting to try it now. But that's 20 years ago. It's amazing. I was just 3 years old when I did that. Now you don't believe that, do you?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Great question.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
I play a lot of video games, watch a lot of movies, but comics is something I'm really never gotten into, but I want to. And, you've been in the industry for a while, I kind of want, what's your recommendation of a good place to start, for someone who likes, really likes the Marvel Cinematic Universe and things like that. What kind of stuff do you recommend from your repertoire and other stuff?
I honestly couldn't tell you. If you like anything that is organized crime level, if you like fantasy, if you like outer space type of stuff, there are titles for each one of those. So you pick what you think is the best. If you love street level crime, gangster stuff, there's Batman, there's Punisher, even Daredevil and Spider-Man are more street level. But if you like fantasy, then you have Superman. If you like fantasy, you have Guardians of the Galaxy, you have anything that follows suit, and it's up to you. I think personally, the writers are all brilliant. I don't think I've ever heard somebody say there's a writer that's god-awful. I don't think that person would be writing. But the creators have limitless, I say limitless because I expected them to run out of ideas just like we were supposed to run out of oil a long time ago. There seems to be more stuff you find over time. It depends on what you like, and then there's something there for you to like, and you'll find it. Trust me.
Okay, thank you.
Batman is the first thing I should have told you to look for. How shallow can you get, huh?
Oh, there's no more questions.
No, but do you have any questions?
Oh no, I have like a million. No, we're not gonna have.
All right,
time
let's
for
go.
all.
Let's start with the first one.
I wanted to ask you. You know how DC is offering this new workshop is coming up in November for aspiring artists to get a chance to work with them. Are you involved in that in any way?
No, I haven't been asked yet, but there's been discussions to approach people about storytelling. Not just the workshops for art and writing. Storytelling apparently can be separated from the art and the writing, and I think that's important. So I would jump at the chance to help out with that, because I'm a better storyteller than I am an artist, and obviously I'm a better storyteller than I am a writer. Although I did write one issue, and I didn't get thrown out of the company, so I guess it must have been okay. Storytelling is what I would probably discuss with anybody that wants to get into the storyboard part of it.
All right. Now all the questions I have are artist related.
Okay.
An artist myself. What advice do you have to someone who wants to try and break in and try to work with big companies like DC or Marvel or even Image? What advice do you have to young artists and this new generation of artists? There's a ton of artists right now out there and have so much exposure. But what advice would you give to them to use that exposure that they have over the internet and conventions to help?
That's actually the answer to the question. Now, if you mean artistically, I mentioned before that if you practice, that honestly there is no answer to getting better as an artist unless you practice. It's like any instrument, playing the piano, the trumpet, the more you practice, the better you get. And if you don't practice, you will regress. There are many artists that started out like balls of fire, and then they didn't, either their egos got the best of them, or they just lost interest. But you can't, if you do something every day for 12 hours, you are going to get better at it. And if you can tell a story, then there's a position for you. So my advice would be, for anybody that wants to do this, is get an education that's a broader education, not just cartooning. Get an education in fine arts, learn how to paint, learn how to design. Fortunately, the curriculum that I had in college was advertising illustration, but it covered everything from anatomy to design. And I was given exercises in life drawing, drawing from models, designing, and along with that and the knowledge I was developing in comics, I combined the two of them and managed to get myself to be a better storyteller. But it's not just the art that's vital in comics, which is important because you have to be able to draw everything from the top, top of a bottle to the insides of an engine of a car, to imagine what the planet Jupiter would look like up close. Everything you can imagine that you've seen in comics, you have to be able to pull out of your hat quickly and get it done without having to go through the internet and copy it off the internet. But storytelling is, if not the most important, it's right up next to being able to draw. Because you have to be able to tell a sequential story that makes sense to people. It's a stop-action movie. And I know some of the best illustrators in the history of comics. If they didn't have a dialogue balloon in it, you wouldn't know what the hell's going on. And I even had a guy approach me, I forgot how many years ago this was, when the industry was struggling and suddenly it was more important to tell a story better than just had pinups. And the guy called me up, and I had never spoken to him before, and he says, I honestly need your help. I don't know how to tell a story. And he was an established artist. He says, give me some advice. Because if I have to tell a story on my own right now, I wouldn't be able to do it. I admired him for his honesty, and he did develop a more experience as a storyteller, but after a discussion, he knew what he needed to do. He just wasn't positive. So a lot of guys that are in the business now can't tell a story unless they have a writer helping them out. So art, everything you can imagine, you have to practice. Everything. There's nothing you can't, like I said, how to draw shoes, how to draw shoelaces, everything. And then tell a story and make sense of it. So that if you didn't have dialogue, you'd still understand what's going on. Silent movie. Right. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. How do you separate your style from your followers?
How would I separate my what?
Your style.
From my style from others?
Yeah, and from your followers.
Oh, from my father's. He's good, I'm not. I'll tell you why I say that. My father was doing things at age 18 and 19 that I can't do now. He was he did recruiting posters for the Women's Army Corps during the Korean War. He did a poster at 18 years old painted it, and I can't do that. And I'm a couple of years older than that. He's a brilliant artist that nobody really knows of because he just did comics. And I can't approach that level of talent, which is good. Because if I was better than my father, I don't know what kind of an asshole I would be. It's if I were the best looking man in the world and the strongest man in the world, you might have a personality problem. So it's better to be lower than that talent and looking up to someone and admiring someone and learning from someone. And then finding out you get into an industry where there are many other people that are better than you. It does two things. Keeps your feet on the ground and makes you work harder, so that it applies to the question I had before. It also gives you something to look at and learn from. So I learned everything from my father that I know, but not everything that he knows. And other than screaming at the Yankees, he doesn't want to talk about work. So we sit, we talk, we yell at the Yankees, and we scream at the Mets, and we talk politics, and we yell at both sides of politics. We think they're all assholes. And then we get to art. He says, oh yeah, your stuff looks great. Don't ask me any questions. He doesn't want to be bothered with it anymore. But it's great to have somebody like that to look up to. Jack Kirby, John Buscema. And there are about 25 people in my industry that are better than me. But I tell a story, maybe I'm better than them. So it's great to have people to look up to. So my style is different from my father's, is that I can't compete with him as an artist. Maybe because I'm doing it regularly, I'm a little better than he would be if he were doing it regularly. But he's 86, so I got a couple of years on him. My style is not anywhere near as good as his. Mine is deadline style, whatever comes out on time. Thank God.
Well, I love your artwork.
Thank you. I think you have exceptional taste in artists.
Thank you.
Thank you, sweetheart. Yes, sir.
Hello. Hello. I wanted to ask you, what was it like, or how did you feel drawing the Batman versus Punisher crossover?
That was a lot of fun, especially because that was the initial time I ever drew Batman, let alone a DC character. I think I had drawn Superman on a crossover cover, but that was the first time I ever drew Batman, and it was exciting at the time, very exciting. And I used Neil Adams' version at the, when I was, because that's all reference I could get. But it was a lot of fun. Equally as much fun as doing the Punisher, who looks like all of my relatives to me. So I actually enjoyed doing the Punisher and Daredevil as much as any characters, drawing characters, because it's part of New York. Hell's Kitchen, Spider-Man in Queens, Punisher in New York, that made it almost real to me, so I enjoyed that. And like I said, there's street level, so there's a lot of things I can use for my life. And doing Batman and Punisher along the same lines, even though Gotham City is New York, it just wasn't real to me. So getting a chance to try Batman for the first time was great. And it's helped me out now, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think my favorite part of that book, if my memory is okay, I don't think so, but I think my favorite part of that book is when Punisher hits Batman, punches him, and when he's going to punch him again, he stops it, and I said, I'll let you have that one because you thought I deserved it.
That's a good, I forgot that. That's right.
I think that's my favorite part of all.
They're actually very similar to it. They're just, there's no superpowers to either one of them. They're just insane people. And the Punisher ultimately could put on Batman's costume and be Batman. Yes, it would be great. In fact, that's a great story. It's my idea. Don't anybody steal it. Hi.
I wanted to ask, aside from drawing Superman on cover and drawing a Punisher Batman crossover, Superman is the first time I've seen you draw a full-on comic at DC.
Mm-hmm.
How did DC contact you to work on Superman and work with Jeff Johns?
The timeline, the chronology was that my contract at Marvel was running down. And Marvel assumed that I was just going to sign back up again, and I wasn't sure. And then through negotiations, none of it was nasty, it wasn't foul, it was just they had other plans, and I had other plans. So it was running low. Now they were willing to negotiate even after the contract was up, but DC heard and said, you know, we'd like to work with you, please tell us what you want. And I told them I had a couple of ideas, and And that was that idea I mentioned before. They liked it and said, okay, this is good enough, this is what we'll offer you. It's a generous offer. And then in the middle of this, after I signed the contract, Jeff Johns said, I actually have some time, I'd like to work with you. And that secured me going into the continuity of the regular title. And now I have a chance to have to do that story that I originally planned. It was very simple, very matter of fact. Nothing bad to say about Marvel, they're all great guys. And, well, there is one asshole, but it doesn't matter for this. It was very easy to decide to go to DC, and DC's been so good to me. They're just great people. And again, it's people. That's what it is. The companies are one thing, but the people that you work with, if you like the people you work with, and they're talented like the guys I've worked with, the writers that I've worked with, you can't go wrong. So I'm just very, very lucky. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
One of the greatest comic books that I've read my whole life has been Amazing Spider-Man 36, which would be true. I would like you to tell us how was your experiences while creating that comic, because when you open the first page, it's amazing, and up to the last page, it is amazing. You know, it doesn't have ups and downs.
I don't remember the original story, for 36. But when the attack happened, the initial shock for everybody was a small amount of time until somebody said we have to do something to address this. And my father and I both discussed it. My wife discussed it. We said, this is silly. You can't. Actually, my wife probably didn't say that. She disagreed. She says, yes, I think it's a good idea to approach it. I'm wrong. It was my father and me. We thought cynically, and we were wrong, that Marvel was going to try to capitalize on this awful attack. And that's not what they had in mind. But the writer couldn't come up with any, Joe Straczynski. They were desperate to get something in it. See, Spider-Man lives and breathes in New York City. New York City was basically a character in the Spider-Man storylines that they said, we have to address this. We can't just act as if it didn't happen. So they approached Joe Straczynski and said, come up with something, and he couldn't. And in a conversation, I'm paraphrasing the conversation, he said, I can't come up with anything, there are no words. And as soon as he said those words, he hung the phone up and he started writing. And he began with, there are no words. Because none of us, and I was outside of New York at the time, I couldn't get home. None of us as New Yorkers could cope with it. We could not understand how this could happen to us. Now that's naive, as we know now. We should have known it was coming. That kind of thing, but you can argue that politically. And then the idea is that how would a superhero who basically protects New York, how would he feel? How much more frustrated would he be? And can you apply his feeling to every New Yorker or every American? The same frustration. Oh my God, I'm sitting here and I can't do anything about it. Could we have done something? And that's where there are no words came from. I'm Spider-Man and I should have done something. And the other superheroes that came into the story had the same feeling. But any New Yorker that had a relative anywhere nearby had the same feeling. I can't believe I can't do anything about this. When am I going to hear from my mother and my father? I had an aunt, and I'll make a light story after this is over about my aunt. But they approached me to do it. I didn't want to. My father said, don't. And then when I read the story, it was perfect for that moment. And Joe Straczynski should be applauded forever for coming up with that script. The problem, thank you, I agree with you, clap for that. The problem I had was, and this is such an unimportant feeling, I was terrified because I had to have my whole office covered in minute-by-minute photographs of what was going on, because Ground Zero was changing daily. Smoke was moving, the smell was moving, everything was changing, and I had to come up with something that was up to the minute. It took 5 weeks to do the story. And I also had to fight back tears because we didn't know if we had relatives and friends. One of my friends lost 43 of his firefighter friends. Another one of my friends lost several of his police officer friends. So every day there was stories coming in. Is Jerry okay? Is Steve okay? That kind of thing. So when my aunt was okay, we were all right. And we found that no relatives were caught. And it took a long time for me to function. But it turns out I was working even though I wasn't functioning. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't feeling sorry for myself. It's just that I was terrified that something bad was going to happen further. And and my parents were in New York, and I was out in California. I was terrified. I couldn't speak to my parents for days. My wife and I were crying every time we would watch the news. It was horrifying. So I had to have photographs in my office, all over my desk, so I could keep the reference going. Firefighters, police, military, all of that had to be right there in front. Have you ever seen the movie Clockwork Orange? Malcolm McDowell has to have his eyes kept open, and he has to soak in violence to cure him of violence. Well, I had to have my eyes open every day to all of this awful stuff, and I was affecting my dreams. I wasn't sleeping well. All of this stupid stuff, it's unimportant in the stream of consciousness that all of the people that suffered, family members. But I got a chance to do it, and as time passed, I was able to control myself more, and it'd come out, and I don't remember, and I say I don't remember what I was doing, because most every book I have ever done has a moment in it where I can tell you where I was and what I was doing, who I was dating, where I was going that week. There's always the trigger, the memory of an image. And I can't tell you what I was doing when I was doing that story. I don't remember.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Felix, I'm Mr. Romita. My question is about, what do you think about comic books or comic book culture? Is the same as literature, you know, as poetry or novels, short stories? Because through decades there have been a debate, you know, about if comic books is real literature or genuine literature. What do you think? What's your point of view about it?
It's easy now because of the fact that Hollywood has come up alongside the comics industry in looking for ideas. And that's easy to say, well, we should congratulate ourselves because Hollywood came calling. Hollywood should have always been calling. Hollywood couldn't come calling because they didn't have the technology to manifest these great ideas. Well, now they do. And suddenly comics creators are being tapped. And it makes sense, and it's important. And I think while that may justify and legitimize comics as a form of medium, as a medium, we all knew, all of us, that it was a strong medium before that. So I just, if somebody says, wow, it took a long time. No, it didn't. It took you a long time. You're the dopes that spent 40 years laughing at people who did comics. And now you're not laughing. Now you're asking us for your help. Well, pay me, you prick.
The thing
Pardon
is,
me, I apologize. Go ahead, finish.
Yeah.
I want to tell the story after you're done.
The thing is that now at colleges, universities, there are courses about studying about, you know, history of comic books, you know, as a literature form.
Absolutely. And now, comics are now being put into hardcover, well, not now, but have been put into hardcover forms, and they're being sold in bookstores. Man Without Fear was on France's top 10 best-selling novels for several years. Well, mostly because of Frank Miller, but my name was also. Same with Neil Gaiman, when I did the Eternals. Neil Gaiman! John Romita Jr. But it got sold in books. It's bookstores. So people have awakened to the legitimacy of this medium. We knew it a long time ago.
Thank you,
Your
Mr.
fathers knew it. I want to tell a story about 9/11. It'll lighten it up a little bit. My aunt, the most prototypical Italian Goomba, hard-edged lady you have ever met in your life, toughest lady you ever want to meet, was in both attacks, one in 1993 and one in 2001. She got out both times. And I really couldn't tell you exactly the words that she used about getting out of the buildings or working for the company. But I will never climb that many effing floors to go into a building again. I quit. And she never got back into, she never went up another flight of stairs into a building again, ever. Toughest lady you ever want to meet. Ran down the stairs both times. But I always see her, she always makes me smile. Never scared her. Toughest lady you ever want to meet. She should have been the president then, wouldn't have any problem.
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
I have seen on YouTube that there's this thing that both the Daredevil and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles universe is connected. And this was also put on Batman, because recently they did a crossover with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Batman.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
So they say that when Daredevil got his powers, he got blind.
From nuclear waste.
Yeah.
That's right.
That same nuclear waste was the one that gave the Ninja Turtles
Okay,
powers.
is this true? Yes.
Yeah.
No, but that's after the fact, and that's the cleverness of the creator.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what do I think about it, or is there a question?
Yeah, like, or did you know? You didn't know this?
No, I didn't know this. I feel so stupid.
Like, yeah.
Thank you for telling me this.
What do you think about that?
I think it's great. I love the guy that created the Ninja Turtles is the most self-effacing, humble guy you ever want to meet. He says, "I just got so lucky." You know, billionaires are just lucky. You know. Yeah. There you go. The effect of comics medium on creators. But I didn't know that, and I think it's a great idea to cross them over. And I know they were in the sewers of the city, and Hell's Kitchen was basically a sewer for many years, so it's perfect.
That's a reason that clan is called the food.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's the hand of the
Okay,
food.
there you go. Excellent point. Thank you. Thank you for reminding
Thank you.
me. I feel much better now. I know everything.
All right, that's it for now. Let's give a round of applause for John. Thank you all for spending here with us during this awesome conversation.
Thank you very much. I apologize for my language, but you know.